Between the 11th and 13th centuries, the Khwarezmids established an empire spanning much of Central Asia and Persia, stretching from the Hindu Kush and the Tian Shan Mountains in the east to the fertile oasis of Khwarezm in the north, to the Persian Gulf in the south, and to the large cities of Tabriz and Marghah in the west. Their empire was one of the largest seen since the collapse of the Seljuks. Yet, compared to their predecessors, they were more of a footnote in Persian and by extension Middle Eastern history. Let's get straight into it. The people of Khwarezm had a humble origin. The first proper Khwarezmian state was the Afrigids, all the way back in 305, who established the title of Khwarezm Shah. However, in 995, the Afrigids would be overthrown by the also Khwarezmian Mamonids, who were soon conquered by the foreign Ghaznavids in 1017. The Seljuks would later conquer Khwarezm in 1042. Now, a common practice throughout the Muslim world was to employ Mamluks. For those of you who don't know, Mamluks were non-Arab enslaved mercenaries, slave soldiers, or freed slaves who often held high-ranking military and administrative roles. It was indeed one of these Mamluks who had earned control of Khwarezm, a certain man named Anushtekin Garchi. In 1077, the Seljuks appointed Anushtekin Garchi as the governor of Khwarezm. He took the title of Shihna and the traditional Khwarezm Shah. Unfortunately, a lot of the details about Anushtekin's governorship are unclear, so there's not much to talk about. He died in 1097 and was replaced by Ekinci. Unfortunately, Ekinci's governorship was cut short when he was killed by two Seljuk emirs who rose up in rebellion. He was swiftly replaced by Anushtekin's son, Qutb ad-Din Muhammad, or just Muhammad I. Immediately upon his ascension, Muhammad I put down an attempt by Ekinci's son to rule over Khwarezm. Throughout his reign, he remained loyal to Ahmad Sanjar, the Seljuk ruler of Khorasan. In fact, he participated in a military campaign alongside Ahmad Sanjar against his co-sultan, Mahmud II, in 1119. In addition, in either 1113 or 1114, he assisted the Karakhanids, a fellow vassal of the Seljuks, in quelling turmoil in their lands. Muhammad I died in 1127 and was succeeded by Atsiz. His reign would reveal the cracks in Khwarezmian loyalty to the Seljuks. Atsiz initially focused on securing his realm from nomadic attacks. However, this would change in 1138 when he revolted against Sultan Ahmad Sanjar. Unfortunately for him, he was swiftly defeated at Hazarasp and was forced to flee Khwarezm. He would later return from exile and attack Bukhara before resubmitting to Ahmad Sanjar and regaining his control over Khwarezm. In that same year, the Karakitai defeated the Seljuks at the Battle of Katwan, and using this to his advantage, Atsiz invaded Khorasan and occupied Merv and Nishapur. However, Karakitai Gurkhan Yeludashi sent a force to plunder Khwarezm, and so Atsiz began paying him tribute. The next year, Ahmad expelled Atsiz from Khorasan and invaded Khwarezm, forcing him to again submit to the Seljuks. Although he was a Seljuk subject, he actively paid tribute to the Karakitai. Atsiz would once again cause trouble in 1153 when the rebelling Oghuz Turks captured Ahmad Sanjar. He and his son invaded in 1156, but Ahmad Sanjar escaped captivity and restored control over his empire, defeating the father-son duo before they could make any gains. Atsiz would die on July 30th, 1156, and was succeeded by his son, Il Arslan. Il Arslan succeeded his father, and initially, just like his father, he remained a Seljuk vassal while also paying tribute to the Karakitai. This would change, however, upon the death of Ahmad Sanjar, as it let the Seljuk Khorasan enter in chaos, which allowed him to freely break away from the Seljuks, formally becoming a Karakitai subject. During the 1160s, Il Arslan attempted to expand Khwarezmian influence into Khorasan, although he wasn't able to make any significant headway. In 1172, the Karakitai attacked Khwarezm because it didn't pay its annual tribute. Il Arslan raised an army but handed over control to one of his lieutenants because he soon fell sick. The Karakitai defeated this army, and soon Il Arslan died on March 7, 1172. His death marked the beginning of political turmoil as his sons, Tekish and Sultan Shah, fought to become the Khwarezm Shah. Initially, Turkin Khatun, the mother of Sultan Shah and Tekish, installed Sultan Shah on the throne, but Tekish went to the Karakitai and gained their support, which he used to borrow a large army and re-establish himself on the throne. Sultan Shah and Turkin Khatun fled to the Seljuk Emir of Nishapur. The Emir of Nishapur launched an invasion into Khwarezm to install Sultan Shah on the throne, but was captured and executed. Sultan Shah would flee to Guru territory, although his mother wouldn't be as lucky. She was hunted down and killed by Tekish's forces. In the late 1170s, the Karakitai recalled Sultan Shah from exile to dethrone Tekish, as he had begun to refuse paying tribute. However, this invasion force fell apart after Tekish opened the dikes on the Amu Darya River, flooding the enemy's path. While most of this army decided to go home, Sultan Shah was able to mobilize a portion of it, and with their help, he conquered Sarkos, Tus, and Merv by 1181. In 1192, Sultan Shah made one last attempt to retake the throne of Khwarezm. At the time, Tekish was absent from Khwarezm. However, in 1193, while on the campaign, he died, and Tekish would acquire all of his holdings, uniting the Khwarezmian realm. In 1194, Tekish allied with the Abbasid Caliph al-Nasir and defeated the Seljuk Sultan Tughril III and conquered Tughril's lands, officially ending the Seljuk Empire. He then broke off his alliance with the Caliph and, for a while, tensions between the Khwarezmians and Abbasids flared until 1198 when al-Nasir officially recognized him as Sultan of Iran, Khorasan, and Turkestan. Tekish died in 1200 and was succeeded by his son, Ala ad-Din Muhammad, or Muhammad II. Muhammad II took the throne in 1200 and immediately faced an invasion by the Ghurid brothers Ghiyath al-Din Muhammad and Muhammad Agor. They swiftly moved westwards into Khorasan and captured Nishapur. Then, Muhammad Agor pushed his armies westwards toward Ray. However, due to a lack of discipline, his troops were only able to go as far as Gurgan. Ghiyath al-Din Muhammad died in Herat in 1203, and Muhammad II used this as an opportunity to invade the Ghurid Empire. However, Muhammad Agor was able to stop his advance into Herat and once again took the fighting back to the Khwarezmians, besieging Gurganj, their capital. Muhammad II appealed to the Karakitai, who sent an army to aid him. Muhammad Agor was forced to lift the siege and return to Ghurid territory following this development. However, in 1204, he was caught by Muhammad II at the Battle of Andkud and was defeated, losing all of his gains over the past 4 years. Muhammad Agor would be assassinated 2 years later, plunging the Ghurid Empire into civil war. Ghiyath al-Din Mahmud would win the civil war, and an opportunity for Khwarezmian expansion would soon come up. You see, Ghiyath's Turkic general, Taj al-Din Yildiz, seized Ghazni from him, and Ghiyath appealed to Muhammad II for help in retaking it. Muhammad II used this as an opportunity to expand his territory. He initially conquered Balkh and Tirmidh before being captured by the Karakitai. He was released 13 months later and continued his conquest of Ghurid lands, capturing Herat and advancing further east into the Ghurid heartland of Gur, capturing Ghiyath, who later recognized Muhammad's authority. In 1207, Muhammad II turned his eyes north, conquering Samarkand, Bukhara, Tashkent, and Fergana. He also vassalized the Aldigizids in 1211, destroyed the western Karakhanids in 1212, and annexed the Ghurid's remaining territories in 1215. He was also a dreadful ruler, as seen when Samarkand revolted in 1212. In this revolt, Samarkand killed around 8,000 to 10,000 Khwarezmians, and Muhammad II responded to this by sacking the city and killing 10,000 of its residents. In 1217, Muhammad demanded formal recognition as Shah from the Abbasid Caliph. However, when al-Nasir rejected this claim, he raised an army and marched on Baghdad to dispose and replace him with someone who would respect his authority. However, his army got caught in a blizzard in the Zagros mountains, and thousands of soldiers died, so he decided to withdraw and return home. Now, it's time to address the biggest elephant in the room, the thing that everyone and their mom knows about the Khwarezmian Empire. It's fall to the Mongols. But why did the Mongols bother invading them? Well, it all started in 1218. The Mongols initially made contact with Muhammad II when they entered his land in order to capture a rogue general. After that, the Mongols sent a trade delegation to Khwarezm, but hearing about the exaggerated accounts of Mongol brutality, Muhammad ad-Inalchuk, his uncle and the governor of the city of Ochar, accused the delegation of spying, seize their goods, and execute them. Genghis Khan tried to maintain diplomacy by sending an envoy of Thayman to meet with them and hand over the governor to be punished. Muhammad II once again made the stupid move of killing the envoy. This move upset the Khan, who, in 1219, crossed the Sirdarya River and invaded Khwarezmia. This army began by besieging and permanently destroying Ochar before further besieging Bukhara and Samarkand. Muhammad II would soon flee to Khorasan, and later, to an island on the Caspian Sea where he would die in 1221. The year before, his son, Jalal al-Din Mangburni, took control of the empire. He would be the final Khwarezm Shah. Jalal al-Din would succeed his father in 1220. He immediately rallied an army at Ghazni, which had now become the empire's capital. With this army, he marched on the Mongols, who were besieging Kandahar, and defeated them. He followed up this victory by defeating the Mongols at the Battle of Parwan in the autumn of 1221. However, immediately after that, he lost the majority of his army to infighting. Inspired by his victories, some cities, like Merv and Herat, revolted against the Mongols. However, these were eventually crushed. After capturing and executing the fortress of Bamiyan, Genghis Khan marched east towards Jalal al-Din, and Jalal al-Din, knowing that he wouldn't be able to defeat this Mongol army, attempted to flee further east into India. However, he was caught by the Mongols and defeated at the Battle of the Indus on November 24th, 1221. Interestingly, upon being defeated, Jalal al-Din jumped into the river fully armed and reached the opposite shore, and Genghis Khan, impressed by this, forbade his army from attacking him. But for the time being, Jalal al-Din had abandoned Khwarezmia. So what was he doing in India? Well, he initially tried to seek asylum in the Delhi Sultanate, but its ruler, Iltutmish, denied him permission to stay because of his poor relationship with the Abbasid Caliph. To make matters worse, in 1222, Genghis Khan sent one of his commanders, Dorve Dukshin, after Jalal al-Din. Dukshin failed to capture Jalal al-Din, and in 1223, he would return to Persia. In 1224, after returning to Persia, he confirmed the rule of Burak Hajib as the ruler of a Karakitai state in Kerman, establishing the Kidmanid dynasty in Persia, albeit as a Khwarezmian vassal. The next year, he dethroned the Adigasids and established his capital at Tabriz, where it would remain until the end of the Khwarezmian Empire. Later that year, he would launch an invasion into Georgia and defeat them at the Battle of Garni. He would later capture Tbilisi and massacre the Christian inhabitants after they refused to convert to Islam. The rest of his reign was marked by struggles with the Mongols and the Sultanate of Rum. In 1226, Burak Hajib revolted, but was subdued. He did score a brief victory against the Ayyubid Sultanate, capturing the town of Uklat, but he eventually lost it. After the death of Genghis Khan in 1227, an invasion force led by Chormakhan was sent to attack Jalal al-Din, but he was defeated near Damekhang. The next year, a different invasion force led by Tamis Noyan was once again sent to attack Jalal al-Din. They met up near Isfahan, and the Mongols scored a Pyrrhic victory against them, losing the ability to further advance on the Khwarezmians. In 1229, Jalal al-Din once again tried to recapture Uklat, but was defeated at the Battle of Yasichman in 1230. This battle was terrible for him because he had lost his entire army at this battle, and was forced to flee to the Sylvan Mountains. Learning of this defeat, the Mongols sent an army of around 30,000 to 50,000 to capture Khwarezmia. Finally, on August 15th, 1231, while in the Sylvan Mountains, Jalal al-Din was killed by a Kurdish highwayman. Following his death, the Khwarezmian Empire collapsed for good. So, in conclusion, the Khwarezmian Empire, while a footnote in Persian history, is certainly worth discussing. The disappointing thing about them is that for a long time, it was a relatively weak state before entering a short zenith, only to be rapidly overpowered by the Mongols to extinction. While a good majority of people who've heard of this empire know it only for how badly it was battered by the Mongol Empire, it is still worth noting that throughout its history, it often played off bigger powers to ensure survival. A smart move that was ultimately bound to expire.